Around 600 BC, we start to see some big political and social change as a result of not only where people have migrated, but the types of societies that they develop and how these traditional teachings are passed on and what they teach. And between about 1000 and 600 BC, cities, and especially those in kind of the Ganges River area to the east of that map that's on the next slide here, that gives you an idea of what society looks like and who's where. Areas there kind of evolve into small territorial states, and they start fighting with each other over resources, and this becomes a time of constant political and military fighting, and also a time of new thinking, especially in the rise of something that's going to turn into what we now know as Buddhism, and a time when that challenges authority of Brahmanic leadership and also of Vedic civilization in general. Two main types of states emerge here. One is kind of hereditary monarchies, king gets passed on to his son, and then oligarchies, which is kind of like a clique of privileged rulers, in this case, an elected elite. In both cases, a group of kshatriya rule. Remember, they're the top of that social ladder. And rulers and citizens in oligarchy communities, so whether they are just kings or groups of leaders, they take the title of Raja. And in those oligarchies, the head of each family, confusingly, is also called a Raja, more or less a king. So there are ties between rulers and ruled. And we see, obviously, that a very small minority are in charge, and they make the rules for the larger majority. How do you get to power in this civilization? Well, you rise through military rank, you marry up, you accumulate land, and more than anything else, you're born into it. Normally, people kind of use a combination of these. This leads to an expansion of the caste system. And even though kingdoms and oligarchies are different, they share this caste system. This has become more or less defined. It defines political power, it defines economic activity, it defines social status. Shudra peasants become their own distinct social group. The labor requirement to plant and harvest rice increases, and these folks take on that role. This is also where water buffalo domestication becomes especially important because oxen can work in those paddies. These folks remain outsiders. They marry only within their own groups. They're called jatis. And that term itself signifies being born into a group. These folks become the lowest order of the caste system. This four-caste system really buttresses, or is buttressed by that Brahmanic ideal that sees kind of rigid societies being natural, being prescribed by the Atman. And if you live in one of those kind of lousy castes, if you live a good life, you can work your way up. So this also creates stability to society. As agriculture expands, labor becomes more specialized, and we see the development of kind of castes or groups within castes. Professions like carpenters and ironsmiths and tanners, they expand within the jatis, and they become kind of ranked as well. So for example, carpenters are seen as being more prestigious than blacksmiths, and those blacksmiths are more prestigious than farmers. And all of them view leather tanners as literally untouchables, people who work with dead animals. So one of the things that you might see with this is that traders seem to be more pure than artisans. Artisans are more pure than farmers. And even those artisans become further divided. Like those who work in gold are seen as above those who work in copper. So these ranks are closed. They're insular. There is not a lot of social mobility. And even subcastes monopolize their skill and their resources. They ban intermarriages, which means that if you figure out how to tan leather, for example, no other group can really come in and steal that group's knowledge. So this caste system over time becomes increasingly elaborate, and it reflects the complexity of urban and rural worlds. It creates specialized roles, and it becomes harder and harder to move up ranks even as population swells. Sorry, this one was a little long.